We'll move to consent.
All items on the consent calendar are considered routine or implement an earlier council action and may be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion unless requested.
Are there items council wishes to pull? Please, Mark.
Item G.
G. And then also, before we take action, I'd like to bring up the finance director in regards to H. There's an item that needs to be corrected. Let's do H first.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. I'm Keith DiMartini, I'm the Finance Director for the city. I wanted to make a clarifying point on the Development Impact Fee Ordinance before you this evening on consent calendar. On the bottom of page 7, it's section 8. It states that this ordinance shall take effect 30 days from the date of its passage. This ordinance shall be published according to law. On the resolution that the City Council adopted 2 weeks ago at the hearing, it does say that the resolution will take effect on May 1st, 2019. So just to clarify, the new development impact fees, if the Council is to approve them this evening, will take effect on May 1st, 2019.
Thank you. I so far have heard item G to be pulled. Anything else? If not, action from council.
Move to approve the remaining items.
Second.
Motion made and second to approve all but item G. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? 5-0. And now let's go to item G. Resolution authorizing the city manager to execute an extension fiscal year 2018-19 for consultant service agreement with West Coast Code Consultants, Inc. for building division staffing services in the amount not to exceed $172,200. Martin.
Right, thank you. I pulled this item to get a little more clarity on what was going on, and I was able to submit some questions. Unfortunately, late today, but I tried to give staff a little advance notice to my questions so that they could be more prepared to answer them. So the first question there, in the staff report, it mentions of that this West Coast consultants have worked for the city in the past, and so at this point we're approving a contract. And so what was the previous contract? And maybe you can give us some background on the relationship of West Coast Consultants.
City manager.
Sure. Javon Grogan, City Manager. So we'll answer that between myself and Darcy Smith, the city's Community Development Director. I'll start off by saying the city's service delivery model for building plan check, so when a building application comes in and that building application is reviewed, is actually to not have that be reviewed by staff. We use an outside firm for that. Many cities do, and we have had a similar contract since 1990, since 2014, with that review being conducted by an outside contractor. In addition, we use this outside contractor for a contract staff that provides on-site permit check services at the counter. And so part of it is implementing our service delivery model, which is not having staff on-site personnel to provide the service. Part of your other question is, why is this coming to you now? And so these funds are approved in the budget. Oftentimes, when funds are approved in the budget for personnel items, they do not come to council because you're essentially through the budget authorization authorizing personnel. There are really 3 buckets of personnel expenditures, and each of them are treated separately. So the first budget is when you approve money in the personnel section for staff. For the most part, those are city employees. A contract does not come before the city council. It's a full-time body. There are some times where we use those funds for a limited services person, like we did for when we currently had a department head vacancy. When we're using personnel dollars, those do not come before council because they're already approved in the budget for that specific purpose. There's another area where we provide contract services where we do not bring those contracts to council, and those are for reimbursables. So if a application walks in and, for example, we have to hire a consultant to do a traffic study, those contracts do not come to the city council because we are not using public dollars for that. We are using the applicant's dollars for that, and so we have a reimbursable. But the third type is when we do come to council, and those are when we are hiring someone on a professional services contract, your typical contractor, to do limited service work. Those contracts do come before council, and that is the contract that you have before you. This contract is over the city manager's spending authority because it's over $75,000, and that is why the contract is before you. But this is implementing our historical service delivery model where we do not have a building plan check city employee. Those building permit applications are reviewed by a private firm, in this case, West Coast Cold Consultants.
Okay, that's good. That's good background. So this contract that we're approving now is good for the end of 2019. So we have a $172,000 contract that is going to be used for the next 3 months, or does it go past that fiscal year? How does that work?
So this contract would be retroactive to July 1.
It's retroactive. Okay, now
and
I
it would
understand.
cover the work for
Got
the
it.
full fiscal
Okay,
year.
Okay. So how do these fees compare to our other fees? Are we taking note of where we stand on what we're being charged for this service compared to other cities? Or what was the amount that was last year, and then how much more did it go up this year? Is it just curious because we didn't see this before.
We pay the staff an hourly rate when they're in at the city offices, and the hourly rates escalated a tiny amount, comparable with sort of the similar COLAs you've seen for other city staff contracts, so 3 to 5%. The off-site fee, which is 65% of the plan check revenue, that's pretty standard throughout other cities.
Okay.
And we do have another firm that does it, CSG. They've been on board with the city. So we do actually have 2 consultants doing that. That contract is a lesser amount, so it's executed city manager level.
Okay.
And that doesn't include any staffing. And that's the same rate structure.
Okay. So this contract, as we'll go through the fiscal year, and then through the budget, we'll see this again, or
Yes, so you will see a similar contract for FY 18-19. I do want to add one thing, because I think it's a part of the question you're asking, which is the cost, are we receiving a good value by having this service contracted out? And so as a new city manager, what I'll tell you is that we will look into that. At $172,000, what I'll tell you is overall, I think we're getting a good deal because you don't have the long-term personnel liability costs tied to this contract. You are essentially having contract personnel review a development application. Now, some cities do use a different service delivery model, which is they have a minimal on-site full-time city personnel, because this work does come in every year, and then when you hit a heavy time in development, you contract out that additional amount with a consultant. The way we do it now is all of the building permits are reviewed by an outside firm. I'm committing that I want to take a look at that, but I'll tell you my gut is that we're getting a pretty good dollar-for-dollar deal because we're not paying the fully loaded cost of a full-time position, nor having those long-term liabilities.
and lastly, and we are looking at how our total internal cost recovery system is going to be based going forward. That's one of the projects that we're looking at.
Yeah, that is our comprehensive fee project that we talked about before.
Did I answer your question? Okay. So we have item G. Any action from council?
Move to approve item G.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve G. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 5-0.